Hello and welcome to this very, very special episode of Success Synergy Show. I have a phenomenal guest with me, Mr. Adam Houlahan, who is joining us from Gold Coast, Queensland, Australia. And Adam is a great LinkedIn expert. He is a best-selling author of 3 books, and he's done numerous events all over the world. In fact, he was telling me just now that just yesterday there was an event which was joined by more than 3,000 people all over the world. Adam is a world-class speaker, and he is going to tell us what really makes a person an influencer in any industry. What are the 9 essential steps, which Adam has covered in his book? I have the book right here. Here. Please have a look. It is called Influencer by Adam Houlahan. Welcome to the show, Adam. It's absolutely my honor and privilege to be here.
Thank you, Neena. It's an absolute privilege to be here with you and all of your people.
Thank you so much. So, Adam, as I was going through your book, I realized that there is one point which you are touching right in the beginning, and that's something which has been quite a lot of confusion area for me and for other people also, I'm sure. And that is about the differentiation that exists between being an influencer and influencer marketing. Because a lot of people are using influencer marketing left, right, and center. I see it on the social media and digital media platforms. But you are differentiating it, that there is a difference between being an influencer and influencer marketing. Please tell us a little more about this.
Yeah, so obviously the concept of influencer marketing, most of us, across to some level, it's simply where you're finding an agency or an individual who holds some influence within whatever industry or niche that they might be in, and essentially you're paying them to promote your brand or your product or your company on your behalf. And it's simply a transaction of exchanging their good words about you for your cash to them. There's nothing wrong with that. It's a very trusted. Most TV advertisements or whatever are essentially using influencer marketing, where they might have a famous cricketer or some other sporting identity or famous singers or something like that are promoting a brand. That's essentially influencer marketing. You're essentially paying to have that person endorse you. The complete reverse of that is where you're the influencer yourself, not from the point of view that you're then marketing yourself as an influencer. My belief is that you can't actually claim, nobody can truly claim that they are an influencer themselves. It's a title that is bestowed upon you by other people. And the quickest way to pick a fake person in that space is anybody that uses that, that says that I'm an influencer,
Yes.
because it's really just a matter of, it's not a title you can claim. It's a title that's bestowed upon you, and the only way to have that bestowed upon you is to be incredibly well versed in whatever it is that your area of expertise, and to be openly sharing that. Not necessarily, I'm not saying you're necessarily sharing it for free, though often you would be, and that you're building a business around that area of expertise. So, if you used our company as an example, so all we do is LinkedIn-based marketing, nothing else. We don't do Facebook or anything else. We don't do the second part of the process, which is like the conversions. We just position business leaders as authorities, and we use LinkedIn as a platform to do that. So that's our sort of area of expertise. And that's been predominantly built around my personal brand. And as you said, Neena, not right now, of course, with the whole, COVID lockdowns and everything, but in a normal world, I would be spending about a week of every month traveling around the world, speaking at live events or running our own events. Now, of course, we've transitioned. A lot of us have transitioned to doing that through, what we're doing right now. So it still has a great impact. It's just not in the live sense. So that's where I'm sharing that expertise, and therefore those people that are benefiting from that consider me to be somewhat of a person of influence around that niche.
Fantastic. As you were talking, I was thinking about my days in regular advertising, not online digital advertising. I've been a creative director of an advertising agency, and when you were talking about influencer marketing, we used to do this, and a lot of people also continue to do this as endorsement marketing. So, is that exactly the same thing, or do you hire digital marketing agencies to do the job? Because some of the digital marketing agencies don't deliver, and I have a practical experience of that myself.
Yeah, so in endorsement marketing, basically, another word for the same process. There are certainly plenty of agencies around who themselves have no real influence, or all they're doing is putting together a stables, if you want to use it as a word, of people who they may suggest are influencers. And I suppose where I have a little bit of a concern about that, and why I wrote about it in the book, is there's quite a proliferation around the world now of so-called influencers that really could be just that some of them are just young children who just happen to get a bit of a following on TikTok or Instagram or Snapchat or whatever it is that they're into, even YouTube, and claiming to be sort of influencers. And of course, these agencies want to lap that up. They want to promote these people as in that space, but their real ability to at the end of the day, the job of an influencer is to transfer that trust. It's the trust that you place in that influence, that person, to transfer that trust from them to the brand. So it might be like we were talking about earlier. So it might be a famous cricketer or something that's saying, well, I use this brand of air conditioning in my house because I believe it's the best. So therefore, he's transferring that trust in that air conditioning company to the consumers. They're swayed by the fact that famous person uses that particular product. So yeah, it is just another way of saying endorsing the product, for sure.
Okay, great. Now, please, you can go on and describe step by step the 9 essential steps as you outlined them in your book, because that's something really phenomenal. Absolutely
Sure.
Great advice.
Yeah, I'd love to. So the first part of it's really around you've got to have what we call a micro niche. So I'm sure everyone's heard of a niche, which just means an area of expertise, but it's got to be much more granular than that. It's very, very hard. Say, for example, well, if you use what we do as an example, so you can say, what's the niche we're in? It's LinkedIn marketing. That's a niche, but that's actually much too broad. You've got to be much more defined than that. So what, in our case, that micro niche is around positioning business leaders as people of expertise within whatever it is they do. So that's our micro niche. A good example I could probably use is a good friend of mine who's a photographer, but he only specializes in doing corporate headshots. So the niche is photography, but there's probably 20 or 30 different, and you can actually read about him in the book, Jason Malawan. There's 20 or 30 different sort of areas of photography that someone could specialize in. So that's a very, very broad. Whereas headshot photography for corporate business leaders is a very, very narrow, tight niche.
Yes.
So that's the first part. You've got to be very clear on what that very tight micro niche is, and that's what will then determine what all the rest of the steps happen. So obviously off the back of that micro niche, you've got that. You know what that is now. The next part is your profile. So you've got to have an online profile, and LinkedIn is just a wonderful platform for having a personal profile. In my opinion, it's probably the best platform. It's certainly gone a long way from its early days where it was like almost like a job site.
Right.
So now it's almost a personal branding site. So you got to make sure your profile then is optimized in a way that people understand what your micro niche is and understand what you stand for. So that's definitely the part two is off the profile, and then it's about your message. So it's not just your headlines and things, it's the way you write about yourself. And often one of the biggest mistakes that I see a lot of people making, Neena, is they write they write about themselves as if they're someone else. So I might be saying Adam is considered a world leader in XYZ, instead of saying I'm a leading authority. So speaking in that first person as opposed to third person. So you've got to have that message that's very appealing and open. It's not like you're trying to close yourself off from other people. You're sort of inviting them to become part of your world, I suppose, and be a little bit sort of open about within reason. That I'm not saying you go too far with this, but and again, as you said in the book, I share a lot of my personal journey through on a reasonably personal level about that. So that's the message, and you'd be surprised at how many times I meet people at events or whatever, and the only thing they talk about is that story.
Exactly, that's phenomenal. I mean, it's really wonderful.
Yeah. So that's the next part is that message. That what message it is you're portraying, and how you're positioning yourself, what you stand for, that type of message. And then it is the story, and that's not necessarily I'm not necessarily talking about the personal story that we just spoke about. I'm talking about the story of what you do, who you serve, what problem that you solve in the world. So that really one of the most powerful forms of marketing these days is storytelling. But it's not like telling a fairy tale or anything. It's very much around telling the story of your clients, or telling the story of your company, telling the story of the people that your team, people that work with you, and what they do, and how they are an integral part of the whole process. So you've got to have you've got to be able to tell a good story, and of course how you tell that story is pretty much through your content. And we were talking just before we started, and you were saying how you're building up a really good bank of content before you launch this in a big way, and that's the perfect thing you should do. One of the hardest things about content marketing, and essentially that's what creates your influence, is the content. Because all the things we've talked about up until now, they're kind of like one-off things. You do them, you understand what your niche is, it's done. You fix up your profile, it's pretty much done. You know what your message is, all those things. They're just one-off. But the content is a never-ending process. It's just got to, and the old days where you used to say, well, create this content and I'll just keep resharing it multiple times. That doesn't really get the effect that it used to be. So it really has to be fresh and inviting content that's a continuous journey through your whole process. And that content has to tell that story, but it also has to show people how you can solve their problem. Because at the end of the day, if we really kind of break it down into the true thing that people really want, is they want you to solve a problem for them. So nobody's going to. Why would you buy? We talked about before. Why would you buy an air conditioner? Because the problem you have is your house is hot. The air conditioner solves that problem. Why do you buy food? Because you need to eat. It solves a problem. So you've got to be through your content. You've got to make it very, very clear to people on a consistent basis. It's got to be a continuous thing. That not only do you understand what your potential clients' problems are, but you have the solutions to those problems. If you can do that one step, if you can really just nail that one thing, that alone would be absolutely game changing to your business, because you now understand what the market actually. They're not there. Essentially, people are on social media for two things. They're either there to be entertained, or they're there to find a solution to a problem. Right. So unless you're an entertainer, okay, that's fine. If you are, then you can use social media in a much different way. A very good friend of mine is a well-known sort of comedian in Australia, so he uses his social media very differently to what I would. So how I would use it and how I would highly recommend that everyone with us today would want to be using it is very much around.
Sorry for interjecting you, but you yourself have also been in the film world. As a double.
Yeah, I have. I have my little stint of fame in a movie, but it's definitely not for me in the long term. But, So it's really about letting people know that you have the solution to the problem that they're seeking, and that would really make the biggest difference. The next part around that is you have to build a community. So you have to have a tribe of people, whatever you want to call that, who are like-minded. And what I mean by that is the reality is it is very, very difficult to change someone's opinion or their point of view. And the world is a massive, massive place. So my belief is that the most powerful way of positioning yourself as that person of influence, as opposed to an influencer, is that you garner a tribe, and you've seen one of ours. So we have a community that we have on Facebook, which is just all about LinkedIn. And often people will say to me, why do you guys have your community on Facebook when you're a LinkedIn agency? What I would say is go and join our group and you'll see why. But there's a video there where I explain that very, very well. But the point is that it's that community that are the people who become the next step of the process, which are your advocates. The advocates are the people who tell other people about you. So we've all seen so many people on social media, on TV, on at events we go to and things like that are doing nothing but talking about themselves. The reason they keep talking about themselves is because nobody else is. So they feel they need to do it. What true influence comes from is from other people, saying, that person is, in my opinion, one of the best people in the world at solving that problem. So when you build that community, out of that community comes your advocates. And those advocates are the ones who essentially bestow the title upon you of an influencer, if that's what's kind of important to you. I don't personally think the title is actually that important. It's the concept that people believe that you are the solution to that problem, and you're one of the most knowledgeable people in the world around that problem. That's actually the holy grail. That is what you want to end up with. And so the final part of the process of that is that you need to get those people then to essentially be putting in writing that's so in LinkedIn terms, it's like recommendations on your profile. So if you don't have any recommendations on your LinkedIn profile, you can say as much as you like that you are fantastic at whatever it is you do, but if nobody else says it, then you're
There's no sense to it.
yeah, exactly. So really, that's the I know we don't really have a lot of time to get really deep on those, but they're the nine steps that sort of and they work sequentially. You've kind of got to nail each one after the other, and when you put all nine together, then I guarantee you that. And I've been fortunate enough to work with hundreds of people around the world on that process, and we've proven it beyond a shadow of a doubt that if you can put those whole 9 steps together, you become the most sought after person in that particular industry, and it's really just a process. Of course, there's one underlying or overarching, however you want to put it, concept that you need to have, and that is that you actually do know what you're talking about. So you can't fake that. there's no way to fake it. If you're not the highly knowledgeable in something, then all this process is not going to help you. It's got to start from there. You've got to have some real talent in what you do.
Adam, actually, I'm getting one question here in my mind, and that is, see, I have been in business coaching, and my business coaching has all been online. Because of certain personal and professional reasons, I had to take it online. It started out as a necessity, and then I started loving the flexibility and work from home situation. It just kept on happening, and that's where my expertise area mainly lies. Now, last year when I wanted to start building my social media presence, I've up until now had a good LinkedIn presence, not a brilliant one, but fairly good. But last year when I started out building on my social media presence, one thing that struck me very strongly was that I love LinkedIn, but when I speak to my audience, I find a lot of people are quite intimidated about LinkedIn, although I try to put them on LinkedIn as much as possible. But at the same time, I wish to educate people on the kind of social media platform which would be most efficient for them. In fact, I did one video on whether TikTok marketing is free. Just yesterday, Indian government has banned some 59 apps, but this TikTok is also one of them. So this is just uh, of that particular news piece. TikTok is a place where a lot of people are existent, but not every brand can be built upon TikTok. I mean,
No.
if you are an entertainer, you can definitely go and have a ball over there, definitely. But and build a lot of big community following you. But building a brand is really different. So, do you think that this would be a good micro niche for a person like me with broad-based experience in business coaching, but narrowing it down to helping people understand which social media platform would probably be working the best for them? Do you
Oh,
think it's
absolutely. Yeah, because as you know, social media is a bit of a minefield. But not every platform is suitable for every business, as you just pointed out. Even LinkedIn's, there's plenty of businesses where we would say to people, there's no value for you to be on LinkedIn. Really, you need to be on, like you said, TikTok or Instagram or something else. So an area of expertise that helps because most of the time, what those companies are having to do is be on all of them to work out which ones work, which is very time consuming, and it's very expensive to be across so many social platforms. Because as we were talking about earlier, the days of having a content strategy where you just put the same content on every platform, it just doesn't work like that anymore. It's a very specific content strategy you'd need for LinkedIn as opposed to what you would need for TikTok, and they are nothing. They don't cross over at all. So imagine if you had to have a content strategy for LinkedIn, Facebook, YouTube, TikTok, Twitter, Instagram, Snapchat. Wow,
oh my God,
that would
it's
blow my mind.
mind-boggling. Absolutely.
And also from the point of view that you know that probably 80% of what you're doing is a complete waste of time. You just don't know which 20% is the right part until you do it all. So what you just said, like to be the industry authority in understanding each of those platforms, and then going in and understanding the business and saying, look, based on my expertise, I truly believe you need to be on these two platforms, and sort of explain why that is. That's a massive value proposition to a company, because they don't have to waste that 80% of their time and probably a huge amount of money in trying to work it out for themselves.
Thank you so much for that endorsement. Now I am absolutely settled in my mind that this is where I would put my micro niche to be. Thank you so much. Coming from you, it's just a phenomenal piece of reassurance, I would say, because since last 6 months I've been thinking about this, or more than 6 months, right? And now I'm very well settled. Thank you so much.
Yeah. So, and just to finish off on that, Neena, the simple reality is what that is that you're solving a problem. The problem is that companies do not know which platforms are the right ones for them. You're solving that problem. That's why they want to engage you to do that.
Great, great. Uh, Tell me a little bit about the three drivers of influence, as
Yeah.
you tell them in the book. And I would again recommend everybody should go and purchase all the three books that Adam has written. They are just phenomenal. And not just read them, study them. I'm also doing it right now, the same thing. I recommend everybody should do this. And at the same time, I also wish to tell our audience, our viewers, the people who will be watching this subsequently, that you should subscribe to the YouTube channel of Neena Dayal, that's me, because we are creating a lot of valuable content which you will not find anywhere else. And the easiest way to get notified about it is by subscribing to the channel. So if you like our content, go ahead and subscribe and do share it with other people who you think would benefit with it. So, Adam, the three drivers of influence, it's again mind-boggling information for a person like me who's just studying all this so deeply.
Yeah.
It's phenomenal.
So yeah, it's not overly complicated if you kind of break it down. So the three drivers are like know, like, and trust. So how does that work? It's so if you think about what happens when somebody becomes a client or wants to work with you, or becomes one of your students in your coaching program, the first part of that is they actually have to know who you are. So if they don't know who you are, they don't know that you can solve that problem for them. So the very first driver is, and that's really done through, obviously, like we talked about in those first stages, where you have that micro niche, and you have that profile and everything sort of really dialed in. That's how people get to know and understand what you're about. The second part, of course, is they have to like you. And in very few circumstances does anybody ever work with somebody or a company they don't like. Now, with the exception of, say, utility companies, like none of us like paying for electricity, or none of us like paying for water, but we've got no choice. So, in those ones, we don't necessarily like them, but we will work with them. But in the normal circumstances, we're only going to work with people that we actually like. So the part of getting the like is created from the content. So by sharing that content and being that problem solver, that's how people get to sort of understand who you're all about, and that's how they decide whether they either like you or they don't like you. And we talked a little bit about this in the 9 steps before, and I was saying there's a big world of people out there. And my belief is you've got to build that community of those people who already believe what you believe. You can't change people's minds very easily, so you just got to get the people to gravitate towards you who already believe what you believe, already believe what in the outcomes that you want. As an example, you could have two polar opposite audiences. There would be, say, people who make money from mining, and there'd be people who are interested in the environment. Now, you cannot change the point of view of either of those two camps of people. So if you're aligned with the people who like the environment, don't worry about the ones who are on the other side. You're never going to change their mind. You're never going to convince them. Just create your content around that market, gravitate those people to you, and that's how you get that like.
That's a great example. I have to say that's a wonderful example. I mean, two stark opposites you are comparing there. That's just amazing.
Thank you. And then the last one is, of course, trust. So people have to trust that you are the solution to their problem. It's only when you've taken people through that journey of they know who you are, they've consumed your content, they've seen what you're all about, they've read your stories, they like who you are, and then they want to become a part of your community, they want to become your advocates. That's when there's trust. And it's only when you have their trust that they will, be open to wanting to work with you. And that's why, say, brands like, if we're big brands like Apple, Apple computers, why is Apple so successful? Is because we trust in the product. We know that we're well made. They're the most expensive computer in the world, but they're the biggest brand. I think Microsoft's kind of coming back a bit now, but the reason is because we trusted in Steve Jobs.
Absolutely.
It wasn't Apple that we trusted in; it was Steve Jobs that we trusted in, and rest his soul. But so that's where that trust factor comes from, and it's only when you have that trust that people will take that next step with you. And it's why you see companies that seem to, or businesses of all sizes, that kind of seem like they came out of nowhere and they just all of a sudden become so well known for what they do. It's because they've been able to build that model very, very well. And they've been able to get people to know who they are, like what they're about, trust in them, and therefore everybody spends their money or their time with that particular brand or company or person.
Right. Actually, it is ultimately to the person. Rest is peripheral to the person, the brand, the whole product range and everything. Right? Basic trust is from human to human, and that's where my, I don't know whether I should be saying this on the live show or no, but I really wish to, so I will just go ahead and say it. I don't mind rocking the boat a little bit because that's how you move forward, I feel. And keep moving forward is the tagline of my company. So without rocking the boat a little bit, it's not really a possibility.
No,
See,
that's right.
Adam, I have seen a lot of people announcing big bank balances, big, money-making niches, and it's all money, 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 continuously, which is the message that is going out to a lot of other people. And they're saying, you come to me and I'll teach you how to make money. That's a bottom line message. That's how I understand it. And social media is just full of that. And I think a lot of people do get enticed. I too got enticed initially, and I purchased a bunch of such products. And I know they don't really take anybody forward except for the creator of the product who has sold them to you, because you are a part of their pipeline. But how to create your own pipeline this way is something very tricky. So what do you have to say about this kind of propagatory marketing? I don't know there is any technical term for this, but I just call it propagatory marketing, which is you lie one after the other.
I suppose it's appealing to people's somewhat, I suppose, desperation. So often what it is they have a very slick marketing sort of machine, and there's not necessarily a lot of substance underneath that. If you go and look behind that curtain, and you go, and one of the interesting things with social media is that people can say what they like within reason, But often when you go and look behind, those people marketing like that, you'll find a whole bunch of very negative sort of experiences that people have had. So the first thing I'd say is, before you sort of get enticed by, and basically what you're talking about, I believe, is, there's a lot of people who will say something like, I don't know, I got this program for $2,000. I'll show you how I made $100,000 a month on Instagram, something like that. And if you think about that, he said, well, if you can make $100,000 a month on Instagram, why do you need my $2,000? Unless how you made your $100,000 is by getting 50 people to give you $2,000. So,
right, exactly.
So that's kind of how it works. So I'm very much against that as well. I believe that you should really be marketing from the position of why it is you do what you do. And this is if I'm sure you guys probably heard of Simon Sinek. I'm very much of a Simon Sinek fan. And, Simon's sort of belief for a very long time was always that people buy why you do what you do before they buy what it is you do. So if you can get people to kind of understand why you do what you do, then they're much more open at a higher level and a much more ethical level to want to be involved in whatever solution it is you provide. And generally speaking, I've never seen too many marketing campaigns that come at that angle that you were talking about that usually had a lot of substance underneath them. Often case was that I've seen many where the results were real, they really did do that, but it's not replicatable. And what I mean by that is it worked for this particular person for a specific reason, but it wouldn't work for you or for me to just go and replicate exactly what they did.
Right.
And there underlies the problem with that concept and I would hazard to suggest in a very high majority of cases that tends to be what actually pans out. So that person didn't lie; they really did do it. It's just that it worked for them, but it's not going to work.
It's not replicatable. True, very true. While thinking about creating pipelines on LinkedIn, and there has been a lot of work around that. Lead generation is something which is interesting to me and to most of the people who are on LinkedIn. Tell us a little bit about creating the sales pipelines over there. I know it's very easy to put the people on the top of the funnel through a free
and
something, but
it's
very hard to move them down.
Exactly, yes. and you sort of mentioned it earlier. Like we ran a big training event yesterday on LinkedIn, a couple of thousand people, and we were talking about exactly that. Is what's the ideal sort of pipeline for LinkedIn, and we actually call it a product ecosystem more so than a pipeline. And essentially, there's 4 parts to that. And the first part of that is that you've got to have a way to get the attention of people. So it might be where so how do you promote what you're going to do on LinkedIn? And the reference we were using yesterday was a feature on LinkedIn called the events feature. It's where you can sort of host an event and people get invited to that event. Which is not obviously held on LinkedIn. Well, it can be if you have LinkedIn Live, but generally speaking, it's held on other platforms, or it even could be live. So that how you get the attention of people is the first part of the product ecosystem. The second part is that you have to have a free product. So that free product could be the event. So people don't have to pay to come to this, what we're doing right now with you. So this is a product for you. You're giving great value to people. There's a great reason for them to come in and engage with all the people that you're inviting around the world to join you. It's a great product, and that's exactly what it is. The next part from that is a free gift. So everybody likes a free gift. So they've had some good information from something they're doing. They get something they can take away, and then there's a free trial. So you've got to build that trust, and that so when people come down to saying, okay, well, I'm interested in what you're doing, but I don't want to be committed until I can actually see how that works, and you say, okay, well, I'll let you try it out for 7 days for free or something like that, and then as long as you're happy with it, then we'll go on and do something else together. So that's the product ecosystem that we use on LinkedIn. Now, of course, it's got to lead to a paid product or service, but it's that journey that you take people through. And what I'm sure you've seen plenty of times on LinkedIn, Neena, is people just trying to sell a product or service. Right. You've probably, I bet you can't even remember how many private messages you got on LinkedIn from people trying to pitch you a product or service, or sell you something. And I would hazard to bet that in 99.9% of cases, you never even replied to those messages. Right. And nobody does. I don't understand why people keep doing it. But if you went to them and said, hey, next week I'm hosting an interview with Adam Houlahan, and he's ABC, and I'd love you to come along for free and just check it out. Well, do you think people will be more interested to be, think, oh, well, yeah, I might go and have a look at that. And I know you had lots of other experts, and you got plenty coming up. So instead of trying to pitch your coaching program at the end, you've just sort of invited them to something that they get great value from, and then you take them down through that journey.
Right. Actually, I did one solo live stream last week only. This was on 10 networking mistakes that people make on digital and social media platforms. Actually, my Periscope is through LinkedIn, but I've seen people doing this on the other platforms also. It's like the moment you send a connection request, immediately you receive a barrage of products and services, and it doesn't work. But I seriously don't understand why people keep doing it. So anyway, I sent that. I'll link it up to this video also once it is processed on YouTube, and people can go back and see that. I think it is valid information. So through the comments, they can let us know if it is actually good for them also. You were saying something, Adam. Sorry.
No, I'd finished actually. So you were right on. So, but you're right. You will see that type of thing all the time, and almost nobody engages on it. And you just got to wonder why they keep doing it. But I think there's a part of that is there's quite a degree of desperation around in the world right now with everything that's going on, and there's a lot of people gravitating onto all social media platforms, LinkedIn and all the others as well, and they're not really understanding how any of this works. So hence where they get great value out of coming and working with you in the first instance to understand which platform, and then of course how to go about it the right way. They'd actually get a lot better result. But they're just coming on and with just really desperate because of what's going on, and they're just not understanding how these platforms work or what actually does work, and of course they end up doing more harm to their personal brand than good.
Thank you, Adam, for that endorsement. I'm also learning, and I think I will keep learning for the rest of my life, because there is so much to learn. I don't think anybody can actually just say that I have learned it all. And this know-it-all attitude is most damaging than anything else. Earlier, I've seen this kind of thing happening with law of attraction. I think the world moves on trends, and once one trend is over, the other trend starts coming in. Today, it's everybody jumping onto virtual working, and people like us, we've been working all our lives virtually, so it's
exactly.
It's no big deal. It's exactly the same process of work. It doesn't change with the medium of work. Perhaps the medium of work has just changed. That's all. But the process, the human interaction just remains the same. I have also seen some people being extremely scared on LinkedIn, or to kind of going on LinkedIn, they feel very uncomfortable. They're very comfortable on Facebook, Instagram, and other social media platforms. But when it comes to LinkedIn, they find it very intimidating.
Yeah.
Have you also seen such a thing?
Sure, every day. It's often why people come to us for help. And I think the main reason often is, like you said, they're comfortable on other platforms, because they're mostly social platforms. LinkedIn is very much a more professional platform, hence why they're scared, because they, unlike the spammy marketers that we were talking about before, who just don't care or don't understand that they're doing things wrong. These people, the people who are, have that degree of trepidation, actually do understand a little bit about branding and their personal positioning and stuff like that, and they're concerned about getting it wrong, and understanding that if they do get it wrong, that they could do a bit more harm than good. So definitely much more my preference of those type of people, because it's just a matter of then educating them on how to do it right. And then they get over that fear, and they usually become very good, very good users of the platform, because they've got some level of real desire to get it right.
Right. Anything else that you would want to add to these 9 essential steps, or anything else for the social media presence? We'd love to have it from you, because I think we've jam-packed this session with a lot of valuable information already.
Yeah, Neena, I think that if there's one takeaway, it would be that it's a constant journey. So the one thing with writing a book like Influencer, you try to keep it very high level, in principle based, but things change all the time. So investing in coming back onto programs like you're running here, or any sort of up-to-date learning, whether it's about LinkedIn or any other parts of social media for that matter, because I can guarantee you if we were having this interview in 6 months from now, we'd be talking about some stuff that was a bit different to what we were talking about today. So
yes, so that's really wonderful, Adam, and I would love to invite you 6 months from now, definitely. So,
I'd love to.
So thank you so much for all the value-added information that you've given us. It's just been phenomenal. And one thing that I would like to add to for the viewers is that they can reach out to you through the Facebook group, and through I know your LinkedIn connections have maxed out, so you may probably not be able to accept anybody in there, but they can join the Facebook group. And if you want, I can put the link in this.
Sure. Yeah, please do.
The description of this video also. And I have also started a LinkedIn-based community. Basically, it is on social media educational community on Facebook. It is a very small community because it's been just started 15 days back. So people who are interested can join that as well. And thank you very much, Adam. It's been just a great pleasure talking to you.
And to you. Thank you for inviting me.
Thank you very much.